Welcome geometry students to the homework help video, page 203, numbers 9 through 23, 25, 27, and 29. Have your books open, please. Have your homework out. Have your calculators out, your notes, anything that you need. Hopefully you're not just watching these and copying. If you are, that's really a mistake. That will hurt your test grades. This homework video here is to help you with the ones you're not understanding. And it's okay to watch the whole thing and get help that way if that's what you need. But if you're doing that and not understanding what you're doing, that really is not a good thing. Okay, let's start off with numbers 9 through 11. The directions for 9 through 11 state, show that the triangle is a right triangle. Show that the triangle is a right triangle. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an equal sign. L squared plus L squared equals H squared. And we're going to show that we have a right triangle. So the biggest number is 25, so that's going to go for my H. And then my two legs would be 20 and 15. All right? So we know 20 times 20, I can do that in my head, 400. 15 times 15, I believe, is 225. And then 25 times 25 would be 625. Now, if you add these two numbers together over here, you will get 625 equals 625. So these two numbers do equal each other, so we proved that we had a right triangle, and that's what they asked us to do. All right, number 10, they're asking us to prove we have a right triangle. So, once again, L squared plus L squared equals H squared. Where the H is, I will substitute the biggest number, which is 26. My two legs would be 10 and 24. Well, this is easy. 10 times 10 is 100. And, of course, 24 squared would be 576. And then if you square 26, you will get 676. If you add these two numbers together over here, you will get 676 equals 676. So we just proved we do have a right triangle, and the right angle would be right here across from the biggest side. Okay, number 11, L squared plus L squared equals H squared. So now remember, students, don't go by the picture. Please don't go by the picture, students. You have to make sure you know which side is the biggest side. If you type the square root of 17 into your calculator and you get out something like 3.2, then you realize that this is not your biggest side for us. So you've always got to check and make sure you know which side is bigger. Now, you're not going to use the decimal, but you've got to see which side is bigger. If you type in the square root of 17, you will get 4.1 or 4.2. So do understand that this number right here is your longer side. So that will be your H. So now that we know the longer side is the square root of 17, where H is, I'm going to put the square root of 17 squared. One leg is a 1, the other leg is a 4. 1 times 1 is 1, 4 times 4 is 16. And then, of course, when you square a square root, you're left with a number on the inside, so 17. And 1 plus 16 is 17, so 17 equals 17. So we just proved we have a right triangle, okay? Now let's take a look at numbers 12, 13, and 14. It says, show that the triangle is acute. Show that the triangle is acute. Now, if you'll think back in your notes, what we learned is your L squared plus your L squared has to be greater than your H squared. That's what we have to have if we have an acute triangle. Okay, so they want us to prove we have an acute triangle, so we're going to set it up like this, and hopefully we'll get an acute triangle. Now the longest side is 23, so I'm going to substitute a 23 right here. My other two sides are 21 and 11. Now, obviously 21 squared is going to be 441, and 11 squared is 121, and that's greater than, or hopefully it's greater than, 23 squared, which is 529. Now, if you add 441 plus 121, you will get 562 is greater than 529. And that's true. So we know that we have an acute triangle. All right, number 13, let's prove that we have an acute triangle. Well, if we have an acute triangle, this left side had better be greater than my right side. Okay, the longest number is a 7, so I'm going to put a 7 in for my H. My other two numbers would be a 4 and a 6. 4 times 4 is 16. 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 7 is 49. Add these two together, and you do get 52 is greater than 49. And that's true. 52 is greater than 49, so you just proved that we do have an acute triangle. All right, let's take a look now at number 14. Once again, we're proving that we have an acute triangle, so L squared plus L squared had better be greater than 8 squared. Now again, let's type in the square root of 29 here, students. Okay, let's type it in. We get something like 5.3. So we know this is the longer side because the square root of 29 is 5.3. This is 5 and this is 3. Now we're not going to use the 5.3, but we had to know which side was the longest side. All right, so here we go. For the h, my longest side is the square root of 29, and that's squared. My other two sides, of course, would be a 3 squared and a 5 squared. Well, that would be 9 plus 25 is greater than, when you square a square root, you're left with the radicand, the number on the inside. Now add these two together, and you will get 34 is greater than 29. And that's what you're supposed to get. So yes, we just proved it is an acute triangle. It's an acute triangle. Okay? All right, numbers 15, 16, and 17. They're asking us to prove that we have an obtuse triangle. Now, if you have an obtuse triangle, that means you're going to end up getting L squared plus L squared is less than your h squared. So if that ends up being true, then you know you have an obtuse triangle. So here we go. The longest side is 7. So where the h is, I'm going to put a 7. My two legs are 2 and 6. So I substitute a 2 here and a 6 here. And I'm left with 4 plus 36 is less than 49. All right? 4 plus 36 is 40, so 40 is less than 49, and that's totally true. And so I know that I have an obtuse triangle because the left side here, my two legs squared added together, the sum of my two legs being squared, is less than the hypotenuse squared, less than 49. All right, number 16. Here we go. L squared plus L squared is less than 8 squared. All right? Well, let's see what we have here. My largest side is 12, so that's going to be my hypotenuse. And then my two legs would be a 6 and an 8. A 6 and an 8. All right. Well, 6 times 6 is 36. 8 times 8 is 64. And that's less than 144, hopefully. Let's add these two together, and we will get 100. And 100 is less than 144. So, yes, we have an obtuse triangle. And then lastly, number 17, let's prove that this is an obtuse triangle. Notice that the longest side is 22. So for my h, I will substitute in 22. And once again, I use the less than symbol right here because I'm proving it's an obtuse triangle. So the hypotenuse is 22, 22 squared. One leg is 13, so 13 squared. The other side is 16, so 16 squared. And here we go. 13 squared would be 169. 16 squared, I believe, is 256. And then 22 times 22 would be 484. Now, if we add our left side together, 169 plus 256, we will get 425 is less than 484, and that's true. So we definitely have an obtuse triangle. We definitely have an obtuse triangle. Okay? All right, moving on. Let's take a look now at numbers 18 through 23. Now, on numbers 18 through 23, all 6 of these, we're going to decide whether we have acute, obtuse, or right. So every time we start off, we're not proving anything. We're checking things out. So we're either going to have less than, greater than, or equal the hypotenuse squared. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste this on that so I don't have to write it every single time. And let's go ahead and get started. My longest side is 23, so where the h is, I'm going to put a 23 squared. And then my two legs would be 12 squared plus 20 squared. Now 12 times 12 is 144. 20 times 20 is 400. And then 23 squared would be 529. Now notice I didn't put anything right here Okay, students, I didn't put less than, greater than, or equal because we don't know what we're going to get, okay? So we're just kind of waiting to figure that out. If you add these two together, you will get 544 on the left side, and you will get 529 over here. So the left side is bigger, and what does that mean according to your notes? That means we have an acute triangle. Even though it looks like we have a right angle here, we do not. We have an acute triangle because the left side is larger than the right side, or the sum of the two legs squared is larger than the sum of the square of the hypotenuse. All right, let's take a look at number 19. Here we go. The longest side is 21, so where the h is, I substitute 21. My two legs are 9 and 16, so I put a 9 in and a 16 in. And let's see what we come up with. 9 times 9 is 81. 16 times 16 should be 256. And I believe 21 times 21 is 441. Yes, 441. Now notice I didn't put anything right here, students. I didn't put anything here, and I didn't put anything here. Okay, we're just kind of waiting. If you add these two together, you will get 337. 337, and that's less than 441. 337 is less than 441, and so we would have, because the sum of your legs squared is less than your hypotenuse squared, we have an obtuse triangle. Okay. All right, number 20. Let's go ahead and put our formula up here. And my longest side is 39, so I would have 39 squared for my h. My two legs would be 36 squared and 15 squared. Well, using a calculator, of course, to make it a little faster, 36 squared is 1,296. 15 squared would be 225. And if you square 39, you will get out, let's see here, 39 squared would give you 1,521. Now, if you add these two numbers together right here, 1,296 plus 225, you will get 1,521 equals 1,521. So we ended up with the equal sign here, so we know that we have a right triangle for number 20, a right triangle. Okay, we're almost done. 3 more to go, then 3 more with just the sides written down. That's it, and we're finished. So, all right, here we go. There's my formula. Look for the longest side, which is 26, and that will go in place of your hypotenuse. Your two legs are 17 and 18. Notice I'm not putting anything right here. Okay, it's kind of a blank right there. So 17 squared is going to be 1,521. Excuse me, 289. And then 18 times 18, 18 squared is 324. And then 26 squared would be 676. Notice still I didn't put anything right here. All right. Now, if you add these together, you'll get 3 carrier 1, 1 carrier 1. You'll get 613 is less than 676. 613 is less than 676, so we know that we have an obtuse triangle, because whenever the sum of the legs squared is less than the hypotenuse squared, we have an obtuse triangle. All right, number 22. Our longest side is 52, and so we take our formula that we have grown to love, of course, and where the h is, I'm going to substitute a 52. Where the leg is, I'm going to substitute a 20, and where the other leg is, I will substitute 48. I'm going to put a circle here, kind of leaving that blank. We know 20 times 20 is 400, and 48 squared would be 2,304. Then I'll leave my big circle here, and then 52 squared would be 2,704. Well, if you add these two sides together, if you add these two numbers together, you will get 2,704 equals 2,704. That's number 22. And so we know that we have a right angle for right triangle for number 22. All right, number 23. The longest side would be 16, and so I know my 16 will go in for my h. And then my two legs would be 10 squared plus 14 squared. You can put those in any order that you want to. If you want to put the 14 first, that would be fine. 10 times 10 is a 100. 14 times 14 should be 196. And then 16 times 16 is 256. Leave my blank here. Now if you add these two together, you will get 296, of course, is greater than 256. Anytime the sum of your legs squared is greater than the hypotenuse squared, that means you have an acute triangle. So number 23 is an acute triangle. Okay, let's try this now without a picture, just numbers. All right. There's the formula that we use, so we'll slide it over here so we can see it a little better. And here we go. The biggest number is 100, so for my 101, so for my hypotenuse, I'm going to put 101. For one leg, I will put 20, and for the other leg, I will put 99. Now, of course, we know that 20 squared is 400, so we have a 400 right here, and 99 squared is 9,801, so plus 9,801, and then 101 squared would be 10,201. Now, for 25, 27, and 29, we're going to state whether or not we have a right or obtuse or acute triangle. Well, if we add these two together right here, we're going to get, let's see, 1, 0, 2, carry 1, 10,021 equals 10,000. I said 10,021. 10,201 equals 10,201. The two numbers are exactly the same, so we know that we have a right triangle. So these three numbers here are the measurements of the three sides of a right triangle. All right, number 27. Again, we use our formula here that we've been using so far that kind of helps us out a little bit. My biggest side or my longest side is 26, so where the H is, I'm going to substitute 26. One of my legs will be a 10, my other leg would be a 17, and now let's go ahead and see what happens here, okay? 10 times 10 is 100, 17 squared would be 289, and 26 squared would be 676. 676. Now if you add these two together, you will get 389 is less than 676. All right? And so anytime that happens, we know that we have an obtuse triangle, okay? Because the sum of the legs squared is less than the hypotenuse squared. So these three numbers are the measurements of the three sides of an obtuse triangle, okay? And finally, last but not least, we're done after this one problem, so way to hang in there and do a good job on this. There's our formula. Let's go ahead. Oh, you know what? We really can't put a number in for h until we know what the longest side is. So we better type in the square root of 67 into our calculators and at least get a decimal. I'm getting approximately 8.2. Now we're not going to use that decimal, but now I know that 9 is bigger. So 9 is going to go in for my h. One of my legs, of course, will be 4, so 4 squared. My other leg is the square root of 67 squared. I'm not going to put anything here. 4 times 4 is 16. When you square a square root, it basically cancels out the square root, so you're left with a 67, and 9 times 9 is 81. Now, if you add these two together, you will get 83, which is greater than 81. All right? 83 is greater than 81. So that means anytime the sum of your legs squared is greater than your hypotenuse squared, that means you have an acute triangle. So these three numbers here are the measurements of the three sides of an acute triangle. I hope this homework help video has been a help to you. Call or email if you have any questions, and please continue to work hard.